From groans to glory, Wisconsin fans got both in the same game. A messy, forgettable first half had Camp Randall restless, but then the Badgers decided to wake up. Danny O'Neal lit it up in his first start. The defense slammed the door shut, and Wisconsin turned a tight contest into a 42-10 blowout. This was the definition of a tale of two halves. Questions remain. Let's break it all down. I'm Rajiv. He's Justin. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers. Authentic takes.
Oh my God.
Game analysis.
Touchdown Badgers! Ring one up!
And discussion from the fan perspective.
Woo-hoo!
Thanks for joining us and on Wisconsin.
Welcome to the Bucky Report. We are your hosts, Rajiv and Justin, back together on a Sunday to talk about all things Wisconsin Badgers. On today's show, we're breaking down Wisconsin's 42-10 win over Middle Tennessee, a game that showed us two very different sides of this team. We'll dive into what went wrong in the first half, how the staff and players adjusted at the break, and how Danny O'Neal delivered a breakout performance that has fans buzzing. Plus, we'll highlight how the defense continues to be a steady force and what all of this means with Alabama looming next week. And yes, we've got to address the elephant in the room, the offensive line. For a program built on O-line dominance, this group looks nothing like the Wisconsin standard right now. You can find our show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. If you like what we're doing, hit that like button, the subscribe button. It helps us out so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for the support of the show as we begin this football season. Earlier show today, it's not our typical Sunday evening. It's opening day of the NFL. I think everyone's excited about it. Badger Bournemouth's already in here saying, good morning, let's get this going so we can watch the Bengals maul the Browns. I did pick the Bengals. So we're going to have this show try to wrap up around 9:45 a.m. Pacific time. So all of you people can get out there, myself included. Go Colts. We have a lot to do. Justin, how you doing, man? Are you ready for the NFL?
First of all, I would just like to say for those of you watching on YouTube TV, Rajiv and I did not coordinate before we came on here. I just randomly decided to wear a different shirt than North Face or one of my other Badger shirts.
He's just a secret Colts fan. That's the problem.
Yeah. Hey, I did like those old Peyton Manning Colts teams, so I'm going to give you a little credit there. I think we came away from yesterday, just my thoughts on what we saw. Thank God the second half happened. And that it feels like there was a pulse, because I think we were wondering if there was a do not resuscitate on the paperwork for the Badgers. They looked pretty rough on the eyes in the first half of that game.
Yeah, man, it was pretty grim. So we'll start here with kind of next day impressions. Like it was, I really don't. I thought it was interesting to just take a look at the PFF grades this morning, which I did because they're out. And, starting with the offensive line, I don't really know what's happening. And the All-22s have just loaded up, and I'm excited to watch that because I really want to see what's going on. But I want to give credit to Emerson Mandel, who graded out clearly as the best offensive lineman yesterday. Pass blocking, run blocking, like he graded out pretty well, as did Riley Mahlman. Not great, but that was about it. Kerry Kadonko, yikes, as far as the PFF grade. Now I know that it's, he's obviously Ray Renfro is going to play center when he's healthy, but I agree with you. The second half was absolutely everything. And I said yesterday on the reaction show, if you could have scripted at halftime what you wanted the second half to look like based on what we saw, that's what it was. So that is very good. 28-0, absolutely destroyed them. Really, really nice second half. So let's just start here with our three takes. That's what I was looking at. I was like, where am I trying to do right now? 3 and out. We'll start with our 3 and out. Badger take, Big Ten take, and national college football take. So I will start here. My Badger take is that I think Grimes showed more than he wanted to yesterday. I don't think we really wanted to pull out the stops as far as some of the misdirection plays, some of the Tretch stuff. Just my thought. I think that we obviously, now the play calling changed dramatically based on what was happening with the offensive line. Good on him. Great job. I'm guessing my sense of it is we probably showed a little bit more than we wanted, Justin, yesterday, just because, Alabama's coming up. Not that we're going to be able to run that stuff on Alabama, but I do think that we probably did that. My Big Ten take is I am surprised with Illinois. I know that a lot of people are going to be like, oh my God, Illinois crushed Duke. I just want to say, if you watch that game, Duke gave up a lot of nonsense, stupid turnovers, punts that turned into first downs, like just they really gave it up. But that being said, I will give credit where it's due. And I think Illinois deserves some credit for going on the road and beating a Duke team that has a pretty good quarterback, really good quarterback, I think. I continue to be somewhat impressed with them. And the last thing I'll say, well, and my national one will still be Big Ten, but Michigan. If you watch the Michigan-Oklahoma game, Oklahoma, we were just talking about it before we came on air, Justin, probably a fringe playoff team, but Michigan, Bryce Underwood is going to be fine. He's going to be pretty good. When I watch that game, I struggle to think how we move the ball on Michigan, just because, and that's going to be a theme as we progress into the Big Ten season. Like, if our offensive line is doing what it's doing, I don't really know how it goes. So my national take is that there's a lot of teams out there, Michigan included, that have much, much bigger defensive lines and very stout lines that we're going to have a trouble with moving along. All right, what are your 3 takes?
Yeah, my perspective is, at least largely for awesome offensive line play, I think my perspective on it is simply, I don't know what to make of it because we ran the ball so little. And that's really hard for me to be like, how much better would we have been in the second half if we ran the ball more? And if they made a concerted effort to really make that a focal point? We didn't. We had 20 carries for our top 3 backs overall, so it's really hard for me to look at that. I would like to see the splits between first and second half. It did feel like they were better running the ball. That's neither here nor there. From a Big Ten take, I feel like maybe there's a few teams in this league that have been given a lot more props than they probably actually deserve. Iowa, I'm looking at you.
I knew you were going to bring up Iowa.
Yeah, oh, my God. Gronowski has all the makings of who was the quarterback they got from Michigan a couple of years back that's still playing. Who they're like, he played on their playoff team.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't.
And he wasn't good. And that's like, yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing from Gronowski. Similar
McNamara.
Offensive. Who? Yeah.
McNamara.
Yeah, McNamara, Cade McNamara. And I'm like, it's your offense. It's not necessarily quarterback. That's the problem. Like, I'm not necessarily sure Gronowski is going to be anything special here unless you can find him some skill talent. And there's a few other teams in the Big Ten that I'm like, yeah, I think we're maybe made them a little bit more, put them on more of a pedestal than they deserve, which is not Oregon, by the way. Oregon just coming out and being like, oh, we blew our shot last year. We're back for blood this year. Good Lord.
God, Oregon put a pasting on a
Power 4 school, 69-3.
Boy, I mean, that was shocking.
Had back-to-back pick sixes at one point.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. And they're gonna cream us. I'm gonna be up there for that game. That's gonna be a rough. And then
one. From a national perspective, I look at this and I'm like, I think that even the pundits and everyone who had teams that they thought were going to be the top teams, I don't think we really have a feel for this season yet. There are teams that are kind of making a play for being powerhouses that I don't think people necessarily did. I think people were high in Oregon. I don't think they were this high. Like, I don't think they were expecting them to come out and click this well early. And I think that's one of the teams. I think Ohio State has shown a ton of growth going into week 2. I realized they were playing an extremely overmatched scrambling team, but you dropped 70 and had a shutout against them. I expect them to get better as the season go on and be a real true power. And I don't know who else you really kind of look at it. I mean, Georgia was okay against a, weak Austin Peay. It's an FCS school. They didn't go out there and drop 60 on them. So I don't know. You kind of take a look at this and it's like, I really don't know what to make of this season at this point yet. We're going to see this take off probably in the next 3 weeks. We're going to figure out who the top teams are.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I mean, obviously, it's nice to have college football back in full force. And next week, real games start to happen. And, of course, that's going to be our game as well at Alabama. Okay, we're going to start with the offensive line. Justin, let's start with, how did you feel about the fix? So the fix, of course, was that Riley Mahlman switches to left tackle. Then you have Brunner staying at left guard. Renfro's hurt, so Kadonko comes in and starts at center. Cubberly goes to right guard. Mandel pushes out to right tackle. 4 linemen in places that they did not play last week. The only one was Brunner that stayed at left guard. What did you think about the fix? Would you have done anything different from a fan perspective on what you thought it might needed?
I think we saw about what you can expect from that much movement. And I think what people need to take away somewhat from this game, at least from my perspective, is there's probably a lot of guys out there that are thinking more than playing. And they're thinking, what's my footwork in this? What's everything that's going on in a certain set to play that position better, because they haven't drilled a ton at that spot. Like even Cubberly was played left guard, I believe, coming into the season, like in the fall camp. So I look at all this stuff with this, and I'm kind of like, every single one of those guys probably was not comfortable. This is one of those games where it's like, we're lucky we're playing Mid-Tennessee State, where you guys can just get reps against live competition playing these positions, because now you get an entire week to kind of work on things and kind of iron out some of the kinks and hopefully get moving better. But I think you have to keep this setup going forward, with maybe the change of being Renfro for Kadenko. And I don't know if you even bumped Kadenko out to right guard. Like, he wasn't great in this game, but it's a different position, so it's hard for me to say.
Yeah. Colin Cubberly, pass blocking, had a 78.1 grade. He actually graded out pretty nicely. Run blocking, he really did not. But Kerry Kadenko had a whole line of, of bad PFF grades. PFF's not everything, but I think from a blocking perspective, I like to look at it.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the eye to kind of see, that kind of stuff. But it's interesting to see how that played out. I also want to note that Jackson Aker had a really bad run blocking score. And I think if you watched that game yesterday, he missed a couple of big time blocks, which was surprising for Jackson Aker. Yeah. So I agree with you overall. I think that I was on record as saying that I was okay with them moving Malman over, because if he's the best tackle on the team, he should play left tackle. So I can live with that. I would have liked to have seen Mandel stay at guard. My biggest issue is, like, why is there no one else that can play right tackle? Like, Leighton Nelson got 3 snaps. I don't know what's going on with Leighton Nelson. I assumed that Leighton Nelson would get more snaps and get more looks, but he's clearly out of favor and not playing. So I don't really know what's going on with that. Obviously, Davis Heinzen over to the right, but that probably wasn't going to go well. This looked like maybe it was the only thing they could have done. And based on how both of those guys, specifically Malman and Mandel, played, I think we can live with that. But as you said, keep it going and make sure it stays right there, so that now if Renfro comes back, theoretically the interior of the line is much stronger, obviously, because I think Brunner, Renfro, Malman on the left side, that's pretty good. If Cubberly or Kadenko, whichever one of those guys is playing better, slots in at the guard, and you have Mandel at the outside, then there you go. Behind that, though, Justin, the depth is a real concern, because clearly Nelson is not really playing that much. Clearly Heinzen is a concern for us. So, like, we can't really afford any more injuries. And frankly, we need Renfro to stay healthy, and he has to play. I mean, he has to play. So do you think anything else should change next week? You obviously want this to now be the offensive line going forward. Really, I mean, Renfro.
Yeah, I don't want us to keep juggling things. I think it's a terrible idea to do so unless you have to. If you want to during the bye week, if maybe one guy needs to be swapped, whatever, but wholesale changes, this needs to be it. You need to have guys settle in now and get comfortable, because what we saw yesterday was a bunch of guys who looked like they were playing out of position and weren't comfortable yet in that role.
What are your thoughts on AJ Blazek right now? Where is your head at on him?
It's hard for me to say with him, because I look at this room, and this is not an ideal offensive line room. Like we talked about, how the middle group that you'd like to have be your depth is just non-existent. So he's kind of left in this situation where I need to juggle around the starters and try to find a matchup that works, because it's not like he's got a bunch of redshirt juniors and seniors that are in there available to him to slide in and try to figure things out. And you're not going to put in true freshmen. So it's like, what do you do? Like, your hands are kind of tied. Now, you could argue that we should have brought more guys in from the portal. I just don't know how far you can go down that rabbit hole of flushing this, because you're also going to have young guys sit there and be like, well, I don't want a body in front of me that's going to be potentially looking to start next year with some of these younger guys.
You could have brought some 1-year guys in though. They're
You
out
could have
there.
done that, but I don't know what the quality was. Like I'd have never done a deep dive in terms of the portal to see what truly was available to us.
Zach Bart's with a question here that I think is interesting, and what I was going to point out is, isn't Grimes an OL guru too? Hopefully they can figure this out. I think it is surprising that, Jeff Grimes, new offensive coordinator, offensive line guy, offensive line coach, and obviously Blazek, who's a guy that we've been high on ever since we saw him, and he's been there, and he's certainly, from bringing in talent, he's there. But this is by far the weakest unit on the team, and it's not close. And frankly, through 2 weeks, if you look at the entire Wisconsin unit, every position group, and I say, what's the only position we're concerned about? It's offensive line. I'm not concerned about other positions. I think other positions are playing great. I think what's happening on the offensive line is actually outshining a lot of great things that are happening on this team. There's some really cool stuff, and we're going to get into a lot of it today, but it's just bringing things down, man.
So one thought I want to throw in on this is, when I see coaches that have had success at multiple other stops struggling here, that to me says more about what we have in that room than it does about those coaches. And I think that that's what we're finding out, is some of the talent that we thought we had based off recruiting pedigree and stuff like that maybe isn't what we thought it was. And I'm not talking about the last 2 classes, because in all honesty, it's great that some of these young guys are proving that they can be in the depth chart. They should not be playing. A guy like Mendel, a guy like Cubberly, realistically should not be playing until their redshirt sophomore year. Like, that is the normal expectation for offensive linemen, unless you're just an absolute freak of nature. And I think that those guys are very talented, but I think in an ideal scenario, they're not playing this year. Like, you want them pushing somebody who's a competent player out of the way, rather than being pressed into that role and having to grow, like take their lumps to grow a little bit. And I feel like we're seeing more of that necessarily than seeing guys who are locked down, ready to go. Haywood, I think was that guy. Like, he was, even if you had an upperclassman, I think he would have outplayed them. I think Mandel and like guys like Cubberly, what we would have looked at and said, you could see the talent, but the guy that's in front of them is a little bit more like well-versed and seems like more competent at this point, is where normally would be.
That goes back to the 23 class of having basically no offensive linemen. I hear you on that. And my issue with that is, like, you're right. The coaches, it's about what's in the room, but they're responsible for what's in the room.
Absolutely.
And if you knew that the 24, 25 classes are fine, and you're not going to have a bunch of Kevin Haywoods, I get that. But then you needed to get more. Like, there has to be blame on AJ Blazek here, big time for me, because like at some point, and then when you look at the players that are playing, you look at how they're grading out and you see what they're performing and some of the missed blocks, like there's just issues. There's real issues. And I don't say, and by you flip the other side of the ball and all you can talk about is you're picking little things out that the defense isn't doing well, but those guys are being coached really well. They're playing really well. I am shocked, honestly, to see how poor this is. I understand it's a talent deficit. I understand that happens, but let me tell you, Kevin Haywood's injury cannot have caused this much havoc on this line.
I won't disagree on that.
That's the problem. Like, you can't just have. Listen, he's an NFL talent. I mean, no one's doubting that. But if he's the only guy that got injured, how is that it? Why is Leighton Nelson the backup tackle if Leighton Nelson can only get 3 snaps when we're having offensive line problems? Like,
yeah,
where are we with the depth in this room? And it's way worse than we even thought it was. And that's the thing. Yeah, my last thing on the O line is any saving this? Like, are you confident that this gets better? Like, where are you at as we push this forward now?
Yeah, I think I absolutely am optimistic that this can get better. I think there is enough talent there for you to get solid. I think these guys are going to look improved this next week. I do not expect them to go out there and be running the football like crazy. But I think even this last week, had we continued to run the football, it would have gotten better as the game went on. I think what you saw was Mid-Tennessee State started stacking the box, and we said we're going to work the edges, which is why you saw, and to their credit, those reverses only work if the offensive line isn't a sieve and doesn't let somebody through. Like, that could have been blown up before it even got started. So both of those that ended up being touchdowns could have easily been blown up if somebody gets penetration. We did not see that. Tretch did not have anyone even remotely close to him until he got 10 yards downfield. So that was very well blocked. I want to push back on some of what you said about him going deeper into his bag. I don't think he did. Like this is who Grimes is.
Okay.
I saw him do stuff like this against Kansas played some no-name school to start their season last year, dropped 40 plus on him, but he was doing stuff like this against even them. What it is that he wants it on film, I think, for Bama to have to think about where, hey, this is something that if you watch them run this speed option, you have to stay home because it keeps bodies from following the speed option too.
I'll hear that. I think that's a really good point. I mean, I think that I look at, and I'm very happy with what Grimes is doing. We're going to get into Grimes' offensive scheme in a little bit, but yeah, I hear that argument. I think at the end of the day, halftime was like, okay, we're going to need to change something, and clearly the misdirection and all those things like we're basically put in place as a result of the fact that we weren't blocking very well, and I think that's obviously just part of it. Jim said, wondering if being deception, misdirection type of offense affects the power run blocking. And there was another one. Jim also said we may have to have the mindset to pass to set up the run. Yeah. I mean, that's not a typical Wisconsin thing. Let's talk about Danny O'Neil next. There's a lot of good things that we can talk about this man. The bad is out of the way a little bit. So let's get into that. 23 of 27, 283 yards, 85% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, and a really weird pick on a really weird play call. Dude, Danny O'Neil, I mean, he looked amazing, Justin. What impressed you about this guy?
Yeah, I think we saw what happens when you game plan for him. They weren't throwing a ton of stuff to the far sideline with him in this game, and I think we knew that had to go away based off the arm strength. It was a lot more stuff between the hashes and a lot of stuff where you're set up and you're in a good spot on the field. Like the Ballard throw was because you were close to that hash. He ran an out, and that defender bit on the out. And that's a staple in this offense is them running a lot of the outs and a lot of, mesh across the center. So that play was set up by him running that route probably 3 or 4 times where they just sat on it eventually, and the guy got too aggressive. This is what happens when you get a bunch of bodies in the box, by the way. There's nobody on the back end. If somebody runs a double move like that, you're pretty much toast. Like there's no unless the corner, and you're not catching Ballard on that.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I have a lot of nice things to say about Danny O'Neil. Like the poise and the confidence that he plays with really shows. And let me tell you something. He was playing behind a pretty underperforming offensive line. We can all agree on that. And in the first half, at one point, he was like 9 for 9. I mean, I'm like, what's happening here? The offensive line is maybe having the worst day I've ever seen in them in Wisconsin jerseys. And at the same time, like, you're getting a quarterback that's really poised and playing well. And as we talked about coming into the week, as you mentioned, the scheme was there. Game planning for him all week clearly showed. And yeah, I mean, he looked fantastic, and he maintained a lot of great poise. I thought he made some really great throws. There's some timing issues there. He throws them a little bit late. I wish he sees the receiver a bit earlier. I'm interested to watch the L22 to see that a little closer, but I'm not gonna say one bad thing about what this guy did today. And like, if you're Fickell, Justin, and we talked about this a little bit on the reaction show yesterday. If you're Fickell, what do you have to see in him in the next couple of weeks to basically say, all right, you're now our starter? Is there something that can happen? Where's the line for you as a fan? Like when you want Billy Edwards back in, or you want Danny O'Neil to stay? And it's a good problem to have. You have 2 solid quarterbacks right now.
I think he needs to consistently take what's there, and I think that if there's an opportunity to make a bigger play, he's got to be competent enough to take it and make it happen. Because I don't think if he wants to win this job that he's going to be able to just sit there and nickel and dime and take the 5-yard pass play every time. He's going to have to find those Ballard throws where it's like you look at it as a coach and you're like, okay, he clearly is seeing the field and understanding this game at a high level. And that's what you need to see, especially for a guy with that type of arm strength. We've seen guys with this type of arm strength be really good in college football before. You don't have to have an NFL arm to be a star in college football. But those guys typically process at a very high level and they're very smart with their understanding of what's going on the field in front of them. And that's why they're able to minimize their physical shortcomings. I do want to give one more prop to the one thing I will say, the offensive line. They were rough in this game. They did not give up a sack.
Yeah, I mean, the pass blocking grades were actually decent. Yeah. They were decent. Listen, it's the run blocking. I mean, that's where the problem is. Like, and I mean, can you just imagine a time where, like, if we didn't have Danny O'Neal, I mean, if Braden Locke would have been playing yesterday,
the mobility is a game changer.
I'm sorry to Braden Locke. But if Braden Locke would have been playing quarterback yesterday, we would have lost that game. Like, there's a possibility we lose,
or it would have been like 24-17.
It's just like, I'm really, really proud of the fact that, and again, shout out to Luke Fickell, Grimes, Kenny Guyton. Like, the quarterback room is in a really good spot, especially this year. Steelbird JT, Danny Dimes. This is not my quarterback who's going to play today for the Indianapolis Colts. This is our guy, Danny O'Neal, Danny Dimes. I'm fine with him being called.
Yeah, that's kind of a slap in the face.
I mean, it's gnarly out there. But yeah, I mean, what a game. Danny O'Neal, unbelievable performance. I mean, I just think that takes a lot of guts, and he knows, like, it's only going to make him more confident. And at this point, we don't have a lot to lose going into Bama. It's going to be a very difficult week, but Danny O'Neal's going to have it. This is going to be a super test for him. I don't expect to see Billy Edwards back this week. That's just my sense of it. Some tweets and, I mean, some text and stuff that
I don't think so either. I'd be very shocked. I'd be very shocked. I think you're looking at, I mean, at best it's Maryland, and I don't know if that's necessarily in play.
I think it's Michigan. I think he plays. I think Maryland, he's going to try, because obviously that game probably means a lot to him, and it would be nice to have him back for that. But when he comes back, he's got to be healthy. So I'm thinking Michigan is when you see it, because that's still like a month away, and that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, kudos to him. Moving on to the offensive scheme, Justin, like, just overall receivers. Great comment here from Zach Bartz earlier. Now I just lost it. Dang it, I should have started. Zach Bartz, shout out to Lance Mason. And I think, Zach, you said that it was the first 100-yard game from a tight end since Troy Fumagalli. I trust Zach. Fine there. But, I think that, what a game by a lot of those guys. Eric, you put up Doc's comment here. Remember, you have two running backs that do not have very many reps in zone scheme, and both are very aggressive. Yeah.
We talked about that yesterday on Ryan's show, that you can sense the lack of patience with them to a degree. They're not giving the offensive line a ton of time. And that's something that goes with reps. And that's why I said I don't like the 20 reps in this game. I want to see these running backs get some opportunity to kind of get flowing into this and get used to it and get comfortable. I don't know how much more that you get against Bama, to be honest. Like, I would you be surprised if it's roughly around the same number of carries this next week?
I mean, probably, because I don't think anybody's running on that. We're not running on that defensive line. I'm sorry. Like, I don't see that. I think if we beat Alabama, it's going to be the kind of misdirection, gadget type stuff we saw yesterday, and Danny O'Neal being Danny O'Neal and doing some crazy stuff. Because if you're thinking we're going to run through between the tackles on these guys, unless Kevin Haywood's making a surprise return, I don't think so. So I don't see that happening. Now, Renfro playing will make that better. I do think if Renfro comes back for Bama, then I think maybe that can tick up a little bit. The catch distribution, Justin, has been a thing now. I think 9 more people caught balls yesterday, or 9 different receivers. Vinny Anthony. Now I'm looking at the wrong. Oh man, I had the wrong stats up. I mean, Lance Mason 7 for 102. Vinny Anthony had 4 catches. Kahuna had 4 catches. Ballard had 2 catches. The receiving group on this team looks to be pretty solid, and I'm happy with what I'm seeing all across the board. Tight ends, receivers, like, really good coaching there. I think that clearly, from a distribution perspective, the Grimes system is working as we expected it to work. Very multiple. Mm-hmm. I'm really happy with Jeff Grimes so far. I mean, obviously the first half was a disaster yesterday, but I don't think that's on him. Mm-hmm. He got a little cute yesterday, which we talked about, but I mean, I'm loving Jeff Grimes. I know how you feel about Jeff Grimes. You've watched him for a while. You have a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, is anything making you think that we made the wrong hire here? This is just like a home run at this point, right?
I mean, did we ever have a game where we had this many chunk plays in the first 2 years?
The explosives are back.
And they were not just, things that were luck to an extent that we saw under Longo, where a guy gets out of position or trips or whatever. For better or worse, these were some schemed plays. Like the Ballard catch was a schemed play. They set that up for that, and that corner got overly aggressive and made a mistake. The reverse is, I'm sure this defense was playing super aggressive, trying to cut off a lot of our runs, and they overplayed. And you're taking advantage of what the defense is giving you. I like the fact that he's doing those things, and I like the fact that a team like Bama is now going to have to take a look at it and be like, okay, we have the physical advantage, but we like to play aggressive. You have to be disciplined because you're going to get caught on some of this stuff if you get too cute. The offensive line hasn't played necessarily great, but you do some things like this. If a defense is going to try to make plays, they're going to try to come downhill, and you got to use that against them a little bit.
Yeah, I really am happy with what I'm seeing from Grimes. I think the second half was masterful. I like that. Sometimes it always like, I don't love when offensive coordinators are up in the booth just because I like when they're down, talking to the players more, but I understand why they do it. And I'm totally good with it. I mean, obviously Chris used to do it when he was an offensive coordinator back in the day. And I think it's nice to kind of get that view up there. And I'm really happy with the poise that he has and the game that he's calling. It just works. Like, he put us in really good positions. And Danny O'Neal throwing 23 of 27 for 283 yards. That a lot of that credit obviously goes to Danny O'Neal, but a ton of that credit goes to Jeff Grimes. Like, he is putting him in really good spots. Yep. And you said it, the explosive plays. Like, I have confidence in our offensive play calling for the first time in a long time, right? A long time. Oh, yeah. I'm happy with what I'm seeing. I'm happy with the multiplicity. I'm happy with the creativity that we're showing. Like, it's really great. And yeah, you get a little bit too cute in the first half. That's fine. But man, the second half was so good. And if Grimes can just get this line working better with Blazek, we really could be seeing something special here. And that's fantastic. Let's flip it over and talk about the defense, who once again had a really solid day. They did allow 10 points, although 7 of them you really can't put on.
Yeah, I don't give them that 7 points.
So basically, it's 3 points on defense, which did well. They didn't play as great, Justin, as they did in the Miami game, because I think it's really, in my opinion, the cornerbacks really were the struggle. PFF says the same thing. Rico Hallman and De'Ani Hill graded out very poorly. Emilio Agard was our top-rated corner. I think he had a great game yesterday.
84, yep.
8 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. I mean, what was that? Our season total last year, I feel like? I mean, unbelievable.
I thought somebody posted last year we had like 17 total sacks as a team, and this year we have 8 already.
I mean,
and I was like, yeah.
It's great to see Christian Allegro. There's so many good things on the defense. Who are some of your stars of the defensive side of the ball? Like, I'm really happy with what I'm seeing out of this group.
Riger, Allegro, Brandon Lane with his first sack. Huge sack from him. The interior of the line looks good. And I saw some people questioning whether the run defense was that great. And somebody was like, even if you take sacks out of it, they had like 20 plus carries for like 55 yards. And I'm like, yeah, they looked fine. Like, they weren't running the ball on us. They were throwing the ball a little bit. And even that, they only had like 200 yards passing. It wasn't like the quarterback went off. You would like to tighten that up some. I do think that Agard is going to eventually take that position. And just be the guy. It feels to me like you wanted Hill out there to kind of be the training wheels for him. Mm-hmm. But to me, Agard is the superior corner. Like, he's just a better technician in terms of coverage.
And you've been on Agard from jump. I mean, literally from jump, you have said that he was the more technically gifted cornerback and
physically talented.
You called it, and I'm very happy about that. Like, I think Agard is. I mean, that pick was perfect. Really nice to see him get his first interception. How long has it been
since we've seen a corner drive on a ball like that?
I know, right?
It's been a while.
By the way, he did that last week too. Like, he was driving up and making hits. Like, dude, he's a very physical corner, and he's playing very confidently, right? The way you have to be really confident to drive on balls like that, to make hits like that. He's not worried about anything. He plays fearless. And given the fact that we lost, a would-be starter in Xavier Lucas, it's really nice that Emilio Agard has stepped in and filled that role. Obviously, the corners, Hallman got just there was a portion yesterday where he was kind of getting abused by number one. Deani Hill definitely did as well. Like, they didn't have the best game. They were put on islands. They just didn't make those plays. I feel like they weren't mentally locked in. Just my thought. Because we all love Rico Hallman. He's a great cornerback, but it wasn't clicking for him yesterday. And I don't know if they just didn't expect the MTSU receivers to be a deadly weapon. Obviously, but their quarterback, Vadiato, was making good throws. He was putting them in really good spots. So that's fair. But those guys are going to be on islands next week too, because we're going to need to get some pressure. And if we're not, then we're not getting any pressure. Like, you give one, you take away. 3rd and 12 yesterday, we brought a ton of pressure, and that's when Hallman got burned for that deep ball. He just didn't adjust to the ball in the air, didn't really do much. But overall, Justin, I'm very happy with the defense, and I think that Tressel deserves a lot of credit. We gave him, frankly, a lot of shit, and I think that he's done a good job so far.
Absolutely. I think the defense has done exactly what we expected that he had to do. Like, if we wanted him to prove himself that he deserved to be the defensive coordinator here. And so far through the first 2 games, that looks to be the case. Now, it needs to continue against some of these bigger games, but we want to see the defense look like it's capable of putting us in a position that if the offense does its job, we have an opportunity to win the game. I want to see this defense keep us in games. I think they can. We see, again, if you look at the play charts, nobody was really taxed in this game. I think the most somebody had for reps was probably corner, and I think Rico had like 40. But defensive line guys were down in like the teens for the number of reps that they played, and that's great. I love seeing those guys be able to get reps out on the field and kind of get grouped out there, because you're going to need that depth as the season goes on. You don't want to have somebody sitting that you think is playable but doesn't get out on the field, and then somebody goes down with injury, and now they're going out there and they're not necessarily as locked in with their awareness because they haven't seen the field in 2 months.
Yeah. All right, man, let's do some positional grades at this point. Let's talk through. We don't need to grade all of them because we've talked a lot about the O-line and the QB and stuff, but let's go through some positions and talk about some players we haven't talked about yet. QB, I think we both agree that's an A+. We're not even going to do that anymore. That's clear as day. Let's talk running backs. Give me your running back grade yesterday. So just for some reference, the 3 backs, right? The Dupree, Jones, Yakimelli, 20 carries, 78 yards, 3.9 yards a carry yesterday. At the 5 yards a carry last week for those 3 guys, but 3.9 yesterday. What's your grade for the running backs?
I think it's probably a C-, D+ for me.
Ooh.
We talked about there were some holes that they've got to do a better job of seeing. And one of them was that Jones one that you and I discussed.
Yep.
That's a lack of patience. That's something you probably hit clean if you just give your line a second to breathe and set up their blocks. There was a lot of room if he goes through that right hole. Like, he had green grass for days to run out there. And that's something that these guys have got to get better with, because they're going to have to maximize it, because this line is probably going to spring you, 2 or 3 of those a game. You're going to have to take advantage of them when they're there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the vision, I've said it now for a couple of weeks, I think Dylan Jones's vision isn't quite what I expected it to be at this point. I know he's young and it'll get better, but that needs to improve. I'm giving him a C, just because I think that we need to be better up there. Look, you blame the offensive line a lot. I get it, but they missed some holes there. Wide receivers, Justin, where are you at on the wide receivers? I think this group is looking pretty solid, man.
I'd say B+, A-. I think that so far they've been a pleasant surprise. I think we've seen how much a scheme can really help receivers when used correctly, because I think I don't think there's anybody we look at it as being a powerhouse physically in this group. And I think we've consistently see guys open. We consistently have been hitting on most of the plays that are there. So, yeah, I think they've been really strong as a group so far. And almost everybody has, when they've gotten their opportunity, has made plays.
Yeah. And it's so deep, too, in the sense that, like, we're confident. Like, even when Griffin's out there, you're confident he's making a good play. Whether it's Vinny or Ballard or anybody out there, Eugene Hilton, like, the group the group like fills you with confidence, and that's what I want to see. And you couple that with good quarterback play, good offensive play calling, and good wide receivers, you have a good unit there. Tight end for me also Lance Mason looked fantastic yesterday. Jackson Magone even had a good play. Grant Steck continues to look good. I love this. I really am happy with what I'm seeing from this tight end group right now. And again, a unit coming into the season, much maligned, talked about a lot, the loss of Tanner Koziel, which I was very beaten up by. I was really happy about him. And when he left, good riddance. Hopefully have fun somewhere else. But Lance Mason really is going to be a safety valve for Danny O'Neill and Billy Edwards.
Yeah, and I think we've looked at that position. We were wondering what it was going to be in this group. And I talked about how I felt like our tight ends were going to be better than what Kansas had last year from just a physical tool standpoint. We've recruited that position better than they have. And it showed because I thought it was fairly limited with Kansas last year because they had good receivers, and I thought the tight ends were kind of limited. I don't think that that's what Grimes feels at all here for this group. And I think going forward, we're in a really good place moving forward with some of the athletes that we have. I really look forward to seeing how that position shows out. I think Mason's going to potentially be the guy for this offense because I do think that he's a guy who's capable of being a safety valve. And I think that that's going to be something that we'll see both Billy and O'Neill kind of lock onto as the season goes on, where it's just like, where am I going to get my 5 yards if it's the play I'm looking for isn't there? I think he's capable of being that guy.
I mean, I know we were playing Middle Tennessee State, but I thought Lance Mason had a little Ferguson-esque in him yesterday. Like he really looked like, again, I recognize the opponent we're playing. And when that continues, we'll see if he can play on Sundays. But he really looked good yesterday. And that was nice to see. Flipping over to defense. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, he looked like more than just a guy who's going to go out there and get you 8 yards on a button hook. Like he could get up the seam a little bit. I don't think he's a guy you're going to be like trying to set up a ton for, but I think that he's a guy that's competent and capable. And if you are running the right plays, he's going to find opportunity to be open for you.
He's physical too. I think that look with that deep ball that Danny O'Neill threw to him, by the way, was an absolute dime on the left sideline. He adjusted very well, and he did that. And I think then if you put him up against a smaller guy, if you got a safety that's covering him, he's very physical, and I think he can outmuscle them and get some of those seam patterns and whether it's a different type of crossing, things like that. I think he's looking really good. Defensive tackle. So let's go the interior of the defensive line yesterday. What's your grade?
I mean, when you give up, like I said, under 60 yards of rushing offense, I have to go A.
Yeah.
And especially with how disruptive the defense was overall. Clearly, they're doing their job and keeping guys engaged. And not only that, kind of causing some issues for the offensive line. So I would have to go A with those guys. Like, I think that the defense has been a pleasant surprise. And they weren't the problem in terms of what the defense was or what the offense was getting from us. It was the passing game that hurt us.
Yeah, I would. So overall, the front seven played well. I'm doing A- on the interior just because I do think there were a couple times where I'm like, you should probably not get swallowed up by that offensive line of MTSU a little bit.
I think that's fair.
But overall, like I'm not complaining. The outside guys, A to me again. Like, geez, man, like. Cheeks, Mason Reiger is an absolute stud. Like the dude is going to play on Sundays. I'm so happy with him. Overall, no complaints about the front seven whatsoever. I'm assuming you're an A with the outside guys as well. Yeah. That's pretty good.
We need to start getting Reiger some sacks, but yeah.
Yeah, and listen, but the disruption, like we talked about this last year so many times. Like you need disruption because if you let a quarterback just sit back there, I don't care who the quarterback is, they're gonna find passing lanes, they're gonna eat you up. So great job there. Inside linebackers, again, happy with that. I'm giving him an A. I think Christian Allegro, 7 tackles. 2 tackles for loss yesterday. Tackett Curtis had a sack. Like those guys are playing great. You got deputies behind him, and Cooper Catalano looks like a stud. Mason Posta got his first sack. Really happy with that group.
Yeah, I would agree. I would give them an A also. Let's move on to cornerbacks.
Yeah, what's your cornerback grade, man?
I'm going to say C-. There were a few big plays that were given up. I think that they need to do a better job of rerouting receivers to an extent. Middle Tennessee State feels like a team that a guy like Hallman or some of the our level of talent corners should be getting physical and disrupting those routes. And that's how you throw off an offense like this, where you're just more physically talented than them. And I don't think they do a great job of that at times. I think Hallman, they play a little soft with these receivers. You can be a little bit handsy, and that's where you cause the issues with some of this.
Yeah. So C- for me. I mean, Rico, Hallman, Deani Hill, they've just got to be better. Like, I know that Rico just had a bad game, and I don't expect that to happen again for the rest of the season. Agar, definitely, if I was grading just him, it'd be much higher. But that group it didn't have it yesterday. Very, very confident that they get it back, and this is not a problem going forward. Safeties, B- overall. I think Zachman also just didn't. There were a couple plays that just the overall, the secondary didn't have the best game, in my opinion. But no major complaints, though, overall. Any issues from the safeties for you?
Not really. I thought they were solid. I don't think that they were bad, but I don't think that they were great either. I would have liked to have seen them potentially hawk the ball a little bit more, but most of the throws were to the perimeter. Like, it's not like they were gaining a ton of yardage over the middle of the field. So it's kind of like they were staying away from the safeties.
Coaching. Give me your coaching grade yesterday. I'll go first on this one. I'm going to give it a B, because I think it's a C and an A. Like, the second half was much better. I do think that in the first half, there were a lot of mistakes. Like, the play calling got a little bit squirrely at times. Why are you not doing anything with 1 minute left to go in the half? You have 3 timeouts. I'm sorry. Like, your team needed something to give it some edge. I do understand that most likely in that moment, Luke Fickell's like, you know what? Screw this. Let's go to the locker room. We got a lot to talk about. And I'm sure that those guys, I would love to have been a fly on the wall in that locker room during halftime. But like, you got to do something there. There was no reason why we couldn't try to get into field goal range and give Vakos a kick.
My gut instinct on that was, having just had the fumble and then leading to a touchdown, is that he didn't want it to spiral. And he was like, let's just get out of this without any more damage.
Dude, you're playing Middle Tennessee State. You got to have more confidence.
I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that's me playing devil's advocate, saying maybe this is the mindset that he had, was like, no, let's just get away from this. Let's get everyone kind of locked back in, recalibrate, and go out and take care of things in the second half.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I think that Luke Fickell still got a lot to prove, and his in-game coaching there's still a little bit left to be desired. But I mean, I will give him all the credit in the world for bringing in Jeff Grimes, because that was a great hire. Mike Tressel's looking much better. So overall, I think coaching is looking up. I mean, both coordinators, I don't think either of us have any issue with either coordinator at this point, which is a really nice place to be in. Last year, we could not say that. I don't think we were ever happy with both coordinators. No. So I think that's nice.
So just to kind of take a look at things after the first 2 games this year versus last year, I think you'd be hard pressed to come away and not say that things don't look better than they did last year.
Yeah.
Like, we had 2 very unimpressive games where we didn't really have any, other than the big run that, that wasn't even was that last season when we broke the big run, the 90-yard run, or was that the year before?
I don't.
I
have a horrible memory.
Malusi. Like, I don't think Malusi broke one last year, did he? The 90-yarder? Was that at the beginning of last year? It doesn't matter. The point I'm making is, we really struggled to have any level of explosives. We saw quite a few of them in this second game. We didn't have a ton of them in the first. The second game, the offense looked improved, minus some of the run blocking. You hope to get that straightened out. You do like seeing the second half where we did have some good execution. And I think that that's what you need to take away from it. The execution was better in the second half. And to have that, especially on those kind of, I don't want to call them gimmick plays, because I don't think they are. They're staple of the reverse is a staple of the Grimes offense. But those plays are very easily blown up if you don't get your blocks. And you have to absolutely stop the penetration, because it's going to get blown up in the backfield otherwise.
Yeah.
I give credit to the offensive line for that not being a problem.
Yeah. It's an interesting game. Tale of 2 halves. Clearly, second half is exactly what we need to see going forward. I do want to touch on one quick thing. if you haven't checked out the Saturday Locks show on Fridays, which is my new betting show, I'm 7-1 on the season, Justin. 87.5%. I've got a kind of a new method for betting. Check that show out, man. The locks are looking really, really good. I have done really well financially from the betting perspectives this year. So that's really great to see. Big week. Alabama's coming up. We'll be back midweek for our 3 Big Things episode to break down Alabama. Of course, Saturday Locks will be on Friday, and then reaction show on Locked On Badgers on Saturday. Hopefully something good happens. Justin, final thoughts before we close this show and go watch some NFL.
My early thought on Bama is pretty simply this. I don't go into that game as a fan hoping for a victory. Go into it hoping to see growth and see us be competitive. And if we somehow find a way to win it, awesome. But I want to show us go out there and look like we belong on the field with them and look like they at times struggle with us a little bit. And that would be great. If we can continue some drives, put some points on the board, and just not get run off the field and look like we're growing against some of this. I think they can do that. And that's what I need to see.
The unit on the Wisconsin Badgers that has always filled fans with most confidence is the offensive line. And at the present time, we don't see it. I have confidence that Luke Fickell, Jeff Grimes, AJ Blazik, and everybody involved are going to make this right, because this cannot happen. And if this happens, if the offensive line can play a few rungs better than they are now, look at the potential of what this team can do, because every other unit is doing exactly what they need to do, short of a couple here and there. And I'm really, really impressed with a lot of aspects of this team. And while we talk about the offensive line and maybe we're talking negatively about it, I think there's so much to be happy about that if things can get right with that group, we have a lot to be confident about going into the season. It's going to be a long year, but I'm really, really happy with a lot of the things that we're seeing. We will leave it there for today. Go watch the NFL. Go watch my Indianapolis Colts. Good luck to the Packers. I know many of you are Packers fans out there. It's a great day when the NFL kicks off. Justin, we'll see you in the middle of the week. And as always, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Bucky Report or The Bucky Report Podcast from wherever you get your content. Until next time, on Wisconsin.